to the Apply Rigor podcast. We are excited that you have chosen to take your time to spend with us today, and we're hoping that we can do a great job. Actually, we're pretty confident we can do a great job adding value to you and help you. And as we get going today, I just want to encourage you again, take a second, hit subscribe on that button where you're listening to this podcast. Leave some comments at the end of the show. We're very interested because today's guest is a killer in the real estate market. And so, Dave, tell us about our guest, man.
Oh, Phil, man, thank you so much for being here. I know how busy you are and how important you are in just leading your company, and just really appreciate your time being here. I'm just going to read your bio real quick so people can understand you and kind of the perspective you're coming from, and then we'll get into the peaks and valleys of what you've encountered throughout the years. So Phil Henderson is a licensed real estate broker in North and South Carolina, North Carolina native. He graduated from Appalachian State University in 1985 with a degree in business management. He has 4 locations. Phil and his company manage over 180 community associations of all types and stages and more than 700 investment properties. Your team has won numerous awards over the years, earned the Association Management Specialist designation, of which there are less than 500 of those awards awarded nationally. It's an honor to have you today on the show, Phil. So we're talking about the peaks and the valleys, and if you could describe to us your highest peak, and then we'll get into your lowest low of working in the real estate market for the last 2 decades.
Yeah. Well, good morning, and thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. And being in the business since 1990, we've had a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. So we could spend a couple of days probably talking, but
yeah.
I tell you, probably the most recent peak, I guess, that comes to my mind is we recently purchased a new office building and moved into a really nice new office building, and that's been a real high point for me and as my career and our business life, I guess you might say, the most recently. And why I say that is when we moved into this office, I just kind of stood around and looked around this 13,500 square foot office building that I purchased.
Wow.
And thought back to 20 years ago when I started our business in the attic. Hold on, let me clarify that. The unair conditioned attic.
Oh, yeah, nice.
In North Carolina, baby.
That's a vision right there.
And
the sweat box.
How in the world did this ever happen? And so it was just one of those things where you kind of have this overwhelming feeling of gratitude and thankfulness for God's blessing to get me to this. The other reason that's kind of behind, and Dave, you can relate to this because you've been to our old office. We were in an office that was about 5,200 square feet. We were sitting on top of each other, and that was the main reason. We've been blessed to grow, and so we need to have bodies, and so we were sitting on top of each other. So we had to move to this larger location. But the big thing was, and Dave, you probably remember this.
Yeah.
The other office didn't have any windows in it.
That's right.
So it was like going to prison every day when we went to work.
Nice.
There was no windows whatsoever. And this office, hopefully you'll come down to Charlotte and see us, is nothing but windows. I don't know if you can see it behind me here.
Yeah.
In my office is all windows, and so it's like I've got out of prison and gone to heaven. Every day that I come to work, it's like I'm coming to going to the park because I see all these trees outside and stuff. And so it's been a real high for us. We just moved back in the first part of May, and so that's been a really gratifying thing for me to see how we've grown over the years and the blessings that have come our way. So
that's awesome, and congratulations on that. And it's pretty cool. I know you're a man of faith, and just really giving God all the glory through that. I know that's important to you, and this is so cool to see you doing that. We're talking about the valley now. Like, what was your lowest valley? Like, what has been a low moment and how did you persevere through it?
Well, yeah, like I said, there's been a number of those too. It's funny that this is what your show's about. I was just talking to somebody recently about how I think entrepreneurs could be classified as schizophrenic,
Mm.
because we have these all the time. I mean, I go from over the years, I've gone from these things where these moods or feelings, I guess you might say, of euphoria for things like what I just talked about, and then the next day I'm ready to sell my business, get the heck out and throw. I'm done, right? And so, as entrepreneurs, I sometimes think we're somewhat schizophrenic in that way, where we're from one end of the spectrum to the other. So there's been a lot of valleys in my business life. The one that I can think of that sticks out in my mind, at least it's been a couple of years ago now, but we had a stretch of about I think about a 2 or 3 week period where we lost 2 of our top homeowner association accounts that were very important from a revenue standpoint and from a profitability standpoint for our company. We lost those as far as the contracts. The contracts got terminated, and during that, so that was a huge blow. That was probably at least 10% of our revenue, probably a little over 10% of our revenue of those 180 associations I mentioned to you before. That was at least 10% of our revenue for that particular division. So that was a huge blow, not only to us revenue wise, profitability wise, but just kind of ego wise as well. And it's like your girlfriend dumping you is kind of the feeling you have, when a good client, tells you they don't want to be a client anymore. It's like getting the Dear John letter. So on top of that, we, in that same 2 or 3 week period, we had a couple of key employees quit, just for various reasons, and that were key employees that we had to try to figure out who was going to take their place. One of those was a leadership position, and which was running one of our divisions within our company. And so it was this perfect storm of all these bad things happening within our company that was definitely one of those valleys in my business life.
So when you're faced with something like that, and I love how you said that, a perfect storm, so where you're losing, major key clients and then some major key employees, what do you do other than want to crawl into a corner and die? Like what is the next step? What do you do in that process?
Just pray a lot. Well, because I definitely do a lot of that, but you just have to kind of step back and take a deep breath and you gotta have to kind of do some self motivation, I guess you might say, that hey, it's going to be okay. And I think what's kind of got when I have those kind of situations, I do pray a lot, but and I had the thing that's kind of gotten me through valleys like that is that I have to remember that God only doesn't give us any more than we can handle. And so that's a constant reminder. And then the other thing that I've constantly have to remind me, and my wife and I talk about this a lot, is that, we can do all this and we can do things to the best of our abilities. But at the end of the day, God's in control. And so that's what has kind of helped me continue to focus on the big picture and not get mired down in the depths of the problems that we have here right immediately.
When you were in the valleys and like I can certainly relate to those, and I think that some of the more seasoned entrepreneurs and business owners can relate to those valleys. When you think about the go-to emotion on the negative side, what is that? Is it for you? Was it anger? Was it frustration? Was it bitterness? I kind of over the years have coined this term flap. I do, and you talked a little bit about it, Phil. Like is it my fear, lust, anger, pride? Those are the big ones that get in the way. for you when you're in that valley, what's your go-to emotion that you feel like, oh, here it comes again,
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of what I was mentioning a little bit earlier. I think for me, uh, it'd be a little bit of all those, but the pride and the fear, I think probably the one. In fact, I'll start with the pride. I take it personal when a client leaves us. I take it personal when an employee quits, and so it hurts my pride. It hurts my ego. So I because it's like I said earlier, it's kind of like your girlfriend,
dumping you, yeah, dear
ditching me
John,
or whatever.
yeah.
When I was younger. So that's one thing. It hurts. It hurts my pride, and so that's one thing. And then the other thing is the fear. I think as entrepreneurs, where we have employees that are depending on us for their income and their livelihood, for to feed their families and all those kind of things. To me, I take that very personally and have a lot of fear of failure, because I don't want to fail and disappoint them and have adverse effects on them. And so when those kind of things happen with, losing accounts and those kind of things, it's that kind of fear kind of sits in with me.
Well, it's interesting, as we've talked in the past on the show about vision, and that, vision really caters to the emotional side of our brain and the emotional side of who we are. That part of the reason we get so emotional and angry when a customer quits us, so to speak, or an employee leaves, is the fact that they're not just quitting or leaving. What they're telling you is, I am quitting on your vision. And that's the part that stings the most, because, you sell with vision. When you're selling to a new client, it's, hey, here's what we're trying to do. And it's so much more than dollars and cents. We're trying to create an environment, or we're trying to cause positive change or whatever. And, and the same thing on the employee side, saying, hey, join our team because we're trying to do this for the world. And when they leave, that's exactly what happens. It says, hey, I'm quitting on your vision. And that's a dagger, man. That just hurts. And so I guess a follow-up question for you, Phil, is thinking about the side of this valley regarding the two employees that were leaving. What did you learn from that? And what were some of, if any, changes you made to ensure that that may not happen again, or at least not in that way?
Well, I think, a couple things that come to mind. It told me that I needed to do a better job of verbalizing and living that vision that you just spoke about, because I didn't think that I had done a very good job at that point, and that I needed to focus more on that. The other thing that it made me realize because for the reason behind that, the sort of the root cause of that, is that I was too far in the weeds with my business. In other words, you've heard the term of working in your business instead of working on your business.
Right.
I was working way too much in my business instead of working on the business and focusing on those bigger things, like the vision of the company, and communicating that vision to our employees. So it made me really focus on trying to hire leaders within our company who could take those leadership positions that I was filling myself, so I could step back and focus on the bigger things.
Yeah, that's good.
That's one thing I've always enjoyed your fresh perspective on that, Phil, and and just just knowing you over the last couple of years, and is that humility aside of, what, it's on me, I can versus you and what did you do. So I really appreciate that. As we land the plane here and we close down, you've been at this for 2 decades. Is there any encouragement that you could offer those entrepreneurs that are middle in the valley or on the peak at this, in their journey of their career?
Wow. Yeah, a lot of things. I think the first thing that comes to mind is, you're going to have those things. You're going to have those disappointments, because nobody's perfect and things are going to happen. But just to coin the phrase of the Carolina Panthers, just keep pounding.
That's right.
Hashtag keep pounding. Yeah.
And remember that, like I said earlier, that God only gives you what you can handle, and at the end of the day, He's in control. And so just keep using your God-given talents to do the very best you possibly can. and it'll all work out in the end.
Well, we're super excited that you were here today, and thank you so much for your wisdom. I'd like to leave our viewers and our listeners with this. It's a quote by Winston Churchill.
That's right.
It says, "Success is never final, and failure is never fatal. It's your courage through both that counts."
That's right. That's right. So as we wrap up today, look at me. I'm talking to you. Look at me. It's not fatal. That's what Phil just talked to us about. It's not done. It's not over. Keep going. So, hey, if this encouraged you, added value to you, leave some comments in the bottom. Please subscribe. But, hey, this next week, go apply some rigor. Take care.